Here.
Go ahead.
All right, so let's discuss the actual war. Now, for the EOC, questions won't focus on different battles. I try to stick to the big idea, the big picture, the major key points that will be covered on the test. So first thing that I want to start off with discussing are advantages that both sides had. Let's start off with the North. The North had a lot of advantages. What were some of those advantages? Larger population, more resources, for example, food, ammunition. We have to remember they were industrialized, so they had factories where they could build and maintain their stock. And nope, that's pretty much it. So let me recap. The North had more people, more resources. Those were their advantages. The South, on the other hand, had advantages as well, regardless of the outcome of the war. And those advantages were, those advantages were, number one, the fighting took place in their backyard. So, of course, that works out great for them because they're accustomed to the climate, they're accustomed to the terrain, and it's always a better idea to fight at home than in front of a stranger's house, as I indicated to my students. Second advantage, they did have better leadership, but I guess that leadership wasn't enough to have them come out as the victor in this war. So that covers advantages. One particular strategy that did help the North defeat the South was the Anaconda Plan. So the Anaconda Plan is better known as a blockade, and the purpose of a blockade is to block all ports in an attempt to keep goods and materials from entering any region that's nearby water. So in this case, the Anaconda Plan was implemented specifically in the South, nearby states like Florida, in areas, for example, the Gulf of Mexico. So all of those southern ports were blocked, which resulted in them having a lack of resources. They lacked resources because nothing was able to come in. So we do consider that to be a great military strategy. And I always tell students, and I'm telling you because you're probably a student watching, imagine a snake. If a snake is trying to kill you, besides using their venom, they try to suffocate you. All right, and in this case, that snake surrounded the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico during the Civil War. Something else that I consider to also be a military strategy is the Emancipation Proclamation. So let me just kind of backtrack. Understand, we did have free black individuals living in the North, and when the war was launched, some of them wanted to join forces. Unfortunately, blacks were not allowed to enter the military until the Emancipation Proclamation. So Abraham Lincoln, better known as the great emancipator, said, you know what? We could use these individuals. In fact, we need them. And rumors were circulating that slaves were being utilized to support the Confederacy and their soldiers. So why not emancipate them? That was the bell.
Yeah.
So why not emancipate them? And that's exactly what he did. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which specifically freed the slaves in the South. So any slave that was willing to leave the South and join the military would be given their freedom. But the truth is, they fought for their freedom. That's another discussion. All right? Slaves in the North, were they free as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation? No way. So the question becomes, why not free everyone? Why only free slaves in the South? Slaves in the South were only allowed their freedom because Abraham Lincoln, remember he's a politician, does not want to rub the Northerners the wrong way. Let's go back to my previous video. The immediate cause of the war was to preserve the Union. This was not about slavery. This was not about emancipating individuals that have been living in bondage for hundreds of years. This is a war to preserve the Union, and had Abraham Lincoln freed all the slaves, then the story changes. It changes. And he has to play both sides. So let me appease the slaves in the South, but also let me continue to appease the Northerners, who's going to play a huge role in me getting reelected. Sounds like today's politicians, but I digress. All right, so those are the major key points that I believe my students need to know for their next upcoming test. Always know the advantages for both regions. Be clear on what was the purpose of the Anaconda Plan, and always remember Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves located in the South. Have a great day.